Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase podcast. Today we have with us Nicole Berezny, who is the founder of Grow Wellness, which is a boutique psychotherapy and coaching practice focused on improving the emotional and behavioral aspects of life to achieve greater overall health and well-being. Each person, according to her, is a unique and natural design who exists to contribute to the greater landscape of humanity. The space where we join together is like the dirt, there to nourish you from the roots up as you grow into light as your best self. I just love how that goes together. I took it right off of your website. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thank you for having me.
So what do you do in a nutshell?
Yes, well, I'm a traditionally trained therapist, but as I was going along that journey, I found that there were some limitations. It was helpful up until a point, and then I wanted to explore, what other modalities are out there. And working with the subconscious, I found to be like the most effective and the most fascinating. So yeah, the modalities that I do really, focus on that and incorporate different elements of energy work as well.
It's so powerful. And just hypnotherapy, I'm new to the whole thing. And as I've been doing it, it's just like you get amazing results so quickly, and things that you don't even, I don't know, the whole subconscious, the way consciousness and the dimensions work, and manifesting, and all of these things that people kind of throw around, they're so powerful. It's just, and they work with really relative ease. It's astounding to me.
Yeah, I mean, there are always like surprises that can come up in sessions, like things you didn't think were related or, just emotions you didn't know that you had. And there's a lot that lives underneath the surface. Mm-hmm.
So when you're working with people, do you work with them on one-on-one, on groups, in person, online? How does all that work?
Yeah, I've switched to all virtual, and I work with individuals primarily. The only exception is live workshops, which I sometimes do in person for family constellations, which is a different modality that I use. But for the hypnotherapy and the Psych K, and as well as the family constellations, if you wanted a one-on-one session, we do that. Mm-hmm.
So tell me about the family constellations. I've never heard of that. And I have actually heard of Psych K before. So we'll talk about that too.
Well, I was going to say it, like sometimes, these aren't like super popular, but that doesn't mean they're any less effective. But family constellations is kind of looking at the family soul. We always think of us as individuals or like our higher self, and it's kind of just very narrowly focused. Family constellations comes from this idea that everything is interconnected, including our ancestors, like our lineage. And so, your life cannot really be separated from the lives that came before you. So if there is some imbalance in the family soul, it's going to affect what's happening in your life on a personal level. So it's exploring those hidden dynamics in the family system as it relates to whatever problem you're trying to work on in that session.
You channel this information, or is there like some procedure? Is it more procedural?
I would say it's experiential. So it's not like channeling or anything like that, but it is using what we call the field. And so when it's done in a group setting, which is traditional, you would pick people to represent certain members of your family. So I may be like, okay, like Susan, can you be my mom? Or like, Robert, can you be my dad? And the field, when you step into the representation, will give sensations to that person. So the person may be like, I don't want to look at you, or I'm feeling angry, or I feel disconnected. And what is unraveling in the field, right? Like the constellation itself is the dynamics that are contributing to that issue. So let's say you came in and you were like, I want to know why I'm having a hard time finding a life partner or whatever. You can see what dynamics in the family is related to that problem.
Interesting. And it goes on the idea that we pick our families and
No, it's more based on the idea that like what your parents went through, what your grandparents went through has a direct effect on what your life can look like, because you take them with you wherever you go. Even if we want to like separate, we're like, we don't like this family member or whatever. It's based on the premise that no matter how atrocious a person was, they still have belonging. And so the more we try to exile a family member, reject a family member, we're rejecting a piece of ourselves. And so, we don't have to accept the behavior, but we do have to acknowledge, what lives within us and what happened before us and how that has an impact on us today.
yeah, and as it went down the line, how it got to you, because nothing exists in a vacuum.
Yeah. And the coolest part, I think, about this modality is that you may have a narrative in your mind. Well, I know that because my grandfather did this, this is why I'm like this, but that's all irrelevant because you're just sitting as the observer. You're not actually an active participant in the session. And so you're observing what the representatives are getting, as they're representing. And it could be something very different from what, your preconceived notion was.
And a lot of times those preconceived notions start when we're really pretty young and don't have a framework for actually analyzing what was happening. And our memories of them are based on taking that information in, not having any way to relate it properly, and then we carry it with us. So in effect, we're misremembering it. Because if you ask the other people that were involved in the situation, they're going to have a different perspective of it, if they even remember it, which most likely they don't, because it happened to you so long ago.
Yeah. And, I think this modality, it's kind of cool because it can also work with things that aren't necessarily just like transgenerational trauma. So people will do constellations on like, a house that they're trying to purchase and that they're having a tough deal go through, because again, it's about like the system. So when someone's representing the house, and I know it sounds a little silly, but when someone's representing the house may be like, I'm still attached to my previous owner. And so you eventually in the constellation kind of invite what we call healing movements. And I do think some facilitators that I've seen in the past, they're so eager to bring a resolution, to the session. But I really try when I'm working to let the healing movement happen if the representative feels it's true for them. And sometimes you don't always have a resolution because it's just not, the person's not ready, or the person they're representing is not ready, or it's not the right time. It doesn't mean it won't happen. But I do think that keeping sort of the integrity of the field is very important.
That's interesting when you talk about houses. I was a realtor in my other life, and one of my other lives, and like in this incarnation, we live lots of different lives if you live long enough. Anyway, I like to go into houses, and I've bought a lot of houses over my lifetime, like 10.
Oh, wow.
So there's a feeling you can get when you walk into a house, and it's interesting. And so when you're talking about a house not really ready to let go, I know what that feels like.
Mm.
And I know what it feels like when a house is like brand new and it's full of potential versus a really, really old house that has a lot of history and stuff happened there. And they all feel different. And you have different experiences in them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I really love that. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's true. Each, like energy has, a past to it. So, it really carries that with them too, even though it's inanimate seemingly, right? It does have a lot of, you know, in like events that have influenced it, like how it feels today, whether that's like the people who newly constructed it or the people who lived in it for decades, whatever it might be.
I've also lived in houses that friends have lived in before I moved in. I have this one group of friends, and I actually, it's a family. We bought their house in Colorado, and then we all moved to Idaho. It's another long, drawn out story. But then they were renting this house, and then they bought another house, and we ended up renting the house after them. And there's always this yummy energy that after they've lived someplace, it's I love living in houses after them. My husband got to a point, it's like, we're only going to buy houses they've lived in before.
Oh my God. You sound like they have really good energy.
They have great energy. I've always loved the energy of the whole family. They have lots of kids, and they're just really neat people. But yeah, so houses have energy, jobs have energy when you
Yeah.
go on interviews, or even if you're thinking about like starting a new adventure in terms of becoming an entrepreneur or a coaching practice, or those all have energy attached to them too.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, they've definitely done constellations where you step in as the business, and the business may say, like, I want this, or I want to do this, or I want this rate, for a service. Where you may have, on a personal level, something else in mind, that may feel uncomfortable. It's too high or too low, whatever it may be. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and being able to kind of detach yourself a little bit from it to have the experience of letting the business tell you what it wants. I think
Yeah.
that's a really interesting.
Yeah, that's why I love it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so my mind's like wandering on. You got to try that zone.
For
So tell
sure.
us about I know it starts with a K. K-Pack? Is
Oh,
that
Psyche. Yeah.
Psyche? Yeah.
Yeah.
I always get those confused.
Yeah. So Psyche, I was drawn to because it was almost in my opinion, like a little bit more mechanical. I think I had come from a place where healing was always like deep and intense, or like, there's just like a lot of emotion sort of tied to it. And this was kind of like, no, it can actually be like lighter. It can be easier. It could just be like retuning. And so how it works is it uses muscle testing. So your body is kind of just telling you yes or no about certain things. And then you sit in different postures that kind of facilitate what we would call like a rebalancing between your subconscious mind and your conscious mind. Because you might be thinking like, yes, I am ready to like, lose weight. And your body is like, no, I'm not ready to do that. I'm not ready to let go for whatever reason. And I think hypnotherapy is a great way to explore the why of that, perhaps, right? Like understanding the insight behind it. But the psyche is kind of just saying, okay, let's see if we can get the body on board so it feels safer. And there's a match between what you're saying you want in your conscious mind and what your subconscious mind, again, like outside of your awareness, is maybe saying no to. And so I thought, it was a very sort of like good supplemental modality in terms of helping people stay on track, with a lot of the habits that they might be trying to form as they make a change. It's not always easy to pick the healthy food or, whatever it may be. And so I think psyche is a great like maintenance modality.
Yeah. And learning the skill of muscle testing on yourself is life-changing, because you really can communicate with your body in a way that, I know it's only yes, no questions, but it gives you feedback where a lot of times we don't, in the day-to-day world, think that, your body could talk to you. And
Yeah.
your body stores stuff in different organs too, and you can find information out about that by asking specific questions. Have you ever heard of the body code?
I haven't experienced it though. I would love to try it.
It's pretty interesting. I actually had somebody locally do it for me, and I've watched them do it on a couple other people, some friends of mine, and it's really interesting how effective it is and how much clarity you can get around different aspects. And whether they believe it or not doesn't make any difference, because they were both really skeptical. And so they but it's been long enough ago that I can look at the result. One of them was my husband, so I can look at the results of what was discovered in the body code, and also we're far enough removed from it that I can, and we've involved medical doctors and some other things in there, and diet changes because of the information that we got in the body code part. And then the results further down the line, by making adjustments because of the information gotten there versus the information gotten from medical doctors that really don't really give you any information. But
yeah, you're preaching to the choir. I totally understand. Yeah.
Here, let me give you some pills to mask the symptoms for something that is your body's response to something. You don't have dis-ease in your body for random reasons.
Right.
It's trying to tell you something. You need to make a change somewhere along the line other than adding something to the problem.
Yeah.
Which is just my opinion, but
no, I totally agree. And I think the muscle testing like helps you build trust with your body. I think often we like ignore it, we just like fight with it, we kind of may be afraid of what it's telling us too. And so, especially for people who are like really indecisive, like, oh, do I want like, the veggie pizza or the salmon? Sometimes you can just experiment in a playful way. Like, okay, what is your body feeling today? What does it need today? Yeah.
Yeah. And, sometimes you're just going to ignore it. That's okay too.
And that's okay too. That's a learning experience. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's often good to try to check back in later and see if that was a good move or not. Sometimes we'll find that it really wasn't the best course of action.
Oh, totally. And, speaking from personal experience, like, I went to study a lot of these modalities because I needed them, like myself, right? And
Yeah.
so it takes me sometimes like making the wrong decision a few times to really learn, right? Okay, like that's now off the table, in a more grounded, kind of secure way.
And getting this feedback from ourselves and from the energy around us allows us to experience different things differently. In that maybe you were making a certain kind of decision for a long period of time, and you're starting to get some feedback about that decision or those thought patterns or other things that kind of come up in your life repeatedly. And if you get some feedback on that, whether it's muscle testing with Psyche or the constellation, the family constellation activity, then you're allowing your body and your intellect to both get feedback. And then you can take that information and use it as data more than I must do this, because your body, as you said earlier, it might not be ready to do it just yet. But if it sits with this feedback for a while and tries some smaller steps to incorporate that feeling into how you are trying to be aligned, then you'll find you're making progress towards the ultimate goal that you're seeking, which is relief from whatever pain you're suffering from.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point, because like as much as we are spiritual beings, we're also animals, to some degree. And like we do have to titrate our nervous system. And so a lot of times these modalities are just meant to help us expand, little by little, our perspective or our physical experience, like how we might feel peace at the end of a session or clarity or what, fill in the blank. But yeah, that titration is really important. It's not just all going to happen overnight in one big, like magic wand kind of situation. I mean, that does sometimes happen, but I would say most of the time it's actually quite gradual.
Most things in life are really subtle, but just like a drop of water will wear away a rock, our life is like that. It's just the constant dripping of whatever it was. And if you change it, it will change the shape of whatever it is that you're trying to change. But time exists but doesn't, and change happens slowly but quickly.
Yeah.
Move along in that way. So let's talk about hypnotherapy, shall we?
Sure.
Okay. So
Yes.
what is hypnotherapy? Why don't you let our
Yeah,
listeners
I
in?
think There are a few different kinds. The kind I studied is called Heart-centered hypnotherapy. It was developed in probably around the 60s or 70s by a couple who were therapists, and they incorporated a lot of different spiritual elements to this modality, both borrowing from like the Indian tradition and the shamanic traditions. So but what a typical session looks like is you would go through the induction, which is sort of the relaxing part. And a big myth is that, people will lose, their consciousness, their awareness. That's not the case. And in the type that I do, you're actually interactive throughout the process. So you're speaking, you are aware of your body. I would describe it as just like a medium meditative state. And then there are what we call regressions, and regressions can sometimes stay in the present depending on how protected a person feels at the time. But you can also go back to childhood experiences, prenatal experiences, past life experiences. And we're kind of just following a thread in this session, right? To kind of see, okay, how is the issue you came in with related to these things that happened before? And then the resolution of that might be, inner child work. It might be a soul retrieval. It might be gathering like energetic resources or internal resources within yourself. And that's sort of where the rewiring comes in, right? Where we're strengthening a new neural pathway in the session. And then you slowly come out of the trance state. And that's sort of the arc of a session. But you're really allowing, again, like the body to speak for itself, in what is connected to maybe some of the distress that you're having. And people go in for lots of things. Sometimes they just want to explore. It's sort of like an open-ended session. And other times it's very targeted. It might be, okay, I want to understand like, how, why I have early onset, arthritis or chronic fatigue. It could be a health issue. It could be, things like I have a hard time speaking up in meetings, but it can really be a wide range of presenting issues.
Yeah, it's interesting how they all kind of meld together to help an individual really work through an issue in their life or a bunch of issues, or help them figure out, if they're feeling stuck, because sometimes we just get to that point where we feel like everything in life is moving through 6 feet of mud, and you just can't get out of your own way to save your life. When you're in those kinds of situations, it's really helpful to have a coach who can kind of help peel back some of the things that are causing this this lack of, really, it's a lack of energy flow. You just like you're sitting in one spot, and then your vibration is getting slower and slower, and when you stop vibrating altogether, you die. So it sounds very dramatic when I say it like that, but it is really how people end up dying, is because they're losing, they lose the vibration that keeps us really going. And when you connect with a coach who, like you, that can help people like figure some of these issues out, then it can allow the vibration to happen much more freely in your body.
Yeah. Yes, that's a beautiful way of putting it.
So how do people get in touch with you if they like to explore working with you and what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, they can go to my website, which is NicoleBerezny.com, and fill out the contact form, and I'll get right back to you and we can set something up.
That's perfect. And what's the one thing you want to leave the audience with today? What do you hope they take away from the conversation?
Well, I would love them to know there's just like a world of opportunity for them out there if they are feeling stuck or feel like they need an extra hand. And, some things will resonate with you and others won't. So I just really want people to know that these 3 modalities I'm particularly passionate about are a stepping stone. If someone just wants a little more flow, like you were mentioning, in their life. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great, Nicole.
Oh, thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.